Disclaimer: this video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Always do your own research or consult a licensed financial professional before making investment decisions. If you've ever searched for beginner-friendly ETFs, you've definitely seen these two names, the S&P 500 and the MSCI World. They are the two most popular set-and-forget investments on the planet, and millions of investors swear by them. But here's the big question: which one is actually better? Which ETF gives you the best returns? Which one gives you the lowest risk? And which one makes more sense depending on where you live? Today, we break it all down in simple language: performance, diversification, risk, long-term stability. So by the end of this video, you will know exactly which ETF fits your goals. Let's start with the basics. The S&P 500 represents the 500 largest publicly traded companies in the United States. Companies like Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Nvidia, Coca-Cola, JP Morgan, basically the giants of the American economy. And because the US has been the world's economic superpower for decades, the S&P 500 has historically delivered some of the strongest stock market returns anywhere. Now, what about the MSCI World? Despite the name, it's not the whole world. MSCI World tracks companies from 23 developed countries, including the US, Canada, the UK, Japan, Germany, France, and many more. It includes around 1,500 companies, so it's far more diversified geographically. But here's the twist: even though it's global, the US still makes up around 60% of the MSCI World because American companies dominate global markets. So right away, we can see the first major difference. S&P 500 equals concentrated in one country, but that country is extremely powerful. MSCI World equals global diversification, but still heavily influenced by the US. Now let's talk performance. And this is where many investors are surprised. Over the last 40 years, the S&P 500 has consistently outperformed the MSCI World. Why? Because US companies, especially in technology, have grown much faster than companies in Europe, Japan, and other developed markets. The S&P 500 simply have more exposure to the world's most innovative companies. Think Apple, think Nvidia, think Tesla, think Google. Meanwhile, many European and Japanese companies grew more slowly, faced stricter regulations, or struggled with economic stagnation. So yes, historically, the S&P 500 has delivered higher returns. But before we declare it the winner, we need to look at risk. The S&P 500 is powerful, but it's also tied to one single country. If the US economy suffers, the entire ETF suffers. It's not very likely, but it's not impossible. Think about political turbulence, dollar instability, or regulatory changes. Meanwhile, MSCI World spreads risk across dozens of countries. If the US slows down, maybe Europe picks up. If Europe struggles, maybe Japan or Canada grows. This diversification gives MSCI World lower volatility, meaning smaller ups and downs over time. So now we have a trade-off. S&P 500 gives higher returns, higher concentration. MSCI World gives lower volatility, broader diversification. Let's go even deeper. One big difference between the two is their exposure to sectors. The S&P 500 is extremely tech-heavy. Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, Meta, Google, these companies dominate the index. That's great when tech booms, but painful when tech crashes. The MSCI World, however, is more balanced across industries: more industrials, more financials, more consumer goods, and slightly less tech concentration. This means the S&P 500 can sometimes outperform massively, but it can also fall harder. Meanwhile, MSCI World is like a smoother ride, not as explosive in good years, but not as brutal in bad ones. Now, here's something most investors don't realize. The S&P 500 is actually inside the MSCI World. In fact, The S&P 500 makes up around 60% of the MSCI World's performance. So when people compare them, they're not comparing opposites. They're comparing the use market versus the use plus everyone else. So which one should you choose? Well, if you want maximum growth, believe in the power of American innovation, and can handle some bigger swings in the market, the S&P 500 might be the better option. Historically, it's been the stronger performer, and America's tech leadership continues to push it forward. But if you want lower risk, broader diversification, and exposure to multiple economies, especially if you're investing for stability, the MSCI World gives you a more balanced portfolio without having to pick countries yourself. What's interesting is that many long-term investors don't choose one or the other. They combine them. For example, a 70% S&P 500 and 30% MSCI World strategy gives strong use exposure while still keeping global diversification. Some investors even do 50-50s to keep things balanced. There's no perfect answer, just what fits your financial goals. So the final takeaway is simple. The S&P 500 is like a high-performance engine, powerful, fast, and efficient, but with more concentrated risk. The MSCI World is like an all-terrain vehicle, slower, but more stable on rough ground. And the best choice depends on whether you value growth or diversification more. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like, subscribe to Money Mindset, turn on notifications, and comment below. Which ETF do you prefer? The S&P 500 or the MSCI World?